There is a reason so many people walk away from medical appointments feeling unheard, minimized, or doubting their own bodies. That experience isn't accidental. It was built. In the last episode, I discussed menstruation, and I want to return to something important before we go any further. The dismissal of women's needs does not begin later in life. It begins early, and it follows people across their entire lifespan. Today, I want to talk about medical dismissal, how it happens, where it comes from, and why it matters to everyone, not just women or people with female bodies. Because if we are serious about questioning the norms we have inherited, if we are serious about doing better than what's been modeled for us, then all of us have to understand how female bodies have been framed, controlled, and disciplined. The harm that comes from that framing does not stay contained to women and girls, like I said last episode. It shapes medicine. It shapes leadership. It shapes whose pain is believed, whose bodies are protected, and whose are dismissed. So again, I'm asking you to stay with me, even if you don't think this applies to you. For decades, women were barred from clinical trials. Medical research was conducted primarily on male bodies. White male physiology became the standard for what was considered normal or average. This wasn't incidental. It was institutionalized. As I write about in Erased, the 1910 Flexner Report, which reshaped modern medical education in the U.S., played a central role in this reality. The report standardized medicine around a biomedical model that treated the body kind of like a machine and implicitly defined the white male body as the baseline for health. Flexner's recommendations led to the closure of many medical schools that trained women and Black physicians, consolidating authority almost entirely in the hands of white men. Midwives, for example, many of them women of color who held generations of reproductive knowledge, were pushed out, discredited, and even criminalized. From that point forward, medicine didn't just exclude women from research, it actively devalued women as knowers. Female bodies were framed as unpredictable, overly emotional, hormonally unstable, deviations from the norm, rather than bodies worthy of study on their own terms. This legacy still shapes how pain is assessed, whose symptoms are taken seriously, and who is trusted when they say something feels wrong. Medical dismissal is not just about missed diagnoses. It's about training people to doubt themselves. When someone repeatedly hears that their pain is unclear, exaggerated, or unimportant, they stop trusting their own internal signals. Again, they learn to override intuition. They learn silence. And that doesn't stay confined to medicine. It shows up in workplaces, in relationships, in parenting, in whose anger is seen as justified and whose fear is seen as irrational. We are talking about how a society decides whose bodies can be trusted and who gets to make decisions about their own body and who does not. This is why this conversation is not just for women. Because a system that trains doctors to dismiss women also trains everyone else to do the same. And a system that teaches people not to trust their bodies is a system that becomes easier to control. When pain is normalized, when discomfort is minimized, when people are taught to just endure rather than question, harm becomes easier to ignore. So I want to leave you with this. Where have you been taught to doubt your own body? Where have you learned to override discomfort instead of naming it? And whose pain have you been conditioned, consciously or not, to question? These are not personal failures. They are learned responses inside a system that depends on our silence. In the next episode, we'll continue tracing how bodily authority has been stripped away and what it would take to restore it. If this episode resonated with you, I invite you to share it with someone who has ever felt unheard, minimized, or dismissed. And remember, questioning what you've been taught is how care begins.